What was supposed to be a simple girls' trip turned into a complete disappearance, and when I finally found her with him, I had one question that changed everything. Should I expose her in silence, or make sure his wife saw the truth first? My name is David Carter, and I've spent 15 years as a forensic accountant specializing in divorce mediation. I've seen every trick in the book when it comes to hiding assets, fabricating expenses, and lying about money. What I never expected was to use those skills on my own marriage. It started on a Tuesday evening when my wife Rachel announced her girls' trip to Chicago. She stood in our kitchen, stirring pasta sauce with that practiced smile she used when selling something she knew I wouldn't buy. "It's just me, Nina, and Sarah from work," she said, not meeting my eyes. "We found this great spa package deal. 3 days, 2 nights. I already booked it." Something felt off. Rachel had never been the spontaneous spa type. She was a pharmaceutical trial coordinator at Midwest Clinical Research, methodical and precise in everything she did. Impulse trips weren't her style. "Which spa?" I asked, pulling up my laptop. "The wellness retreat in downtown Chicago. You know, the one Sarah's always talking about." I nodded, but my forensic instincts were already kicking in. After she went to bed, I did what I do best. I followed the money. Our joint credit card showed the hotel booking all right, but the merchant code didn't match any spa. It was a lakeside resort 3 hours north of Chicago, and the room was booked for 2 people, not 3. The reservation name made my blood run cold. Rachel Carter and Dr. Marcus Webb. Dr. Marcus Webb, Rachel's supervisor at the clinic, the married father of 2 who'd been to our house for dinner parties, the man whose wife Jennifer had become one of my closest friends over the past 2 years. I sat in my home office until 3 in the morning, staring at the evidence on my screen. 15 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a mortgage we'd struggled to pay, all of it crumbling because my wife thought she was smarter than a forensic accountant. But I wasn't just any forensic accountant. I was the guy who'd caught a pharmaceutical CEO embezzling trial funds by tracking his Starbucks purchases. I was the one who'd exposed a judge's wife hiding assets in her dog's trust fund. If Rachel wanted to play games with money trails, she'd picked the wrong husband. The next morning, Rachel kissed me goodbye with the same lips that had been lying to me. "I'll call you tonight from the spa," she said, wheeling her suitcase to the car. "Have fun with the girls," I replied, watching her drive away. As soon as her car disappeared, I got to work. I pulled up our vehicle's GPS tracking system, something I'd installed after our eldest daughter Emma started driving. Rachel had forgotten it was there, or maybe she never knew. Either way, it was about to become her biggest mistake. The GPS showed her car heading north, exactly toward the lakeside resort. I grabbed my camera, called in sick to work, and started driving. The Pine Lake Resort was exactly the kind of place people went to disappear for a weekend. Secluded cabins, private docks, and enough trees to hide whatever sins you were committing. I parked across the lake and used my telephoto lens, a leftover from my brief photography hobby, to document everything. There she was, my wife of 15 years, walking hand in hand with Marcus Webb along the shoreline. They looked like teenagers, laughing and touching each other with the kind of intimacy that should have been reserved for their spouses. I took 47 photos, each one a nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I wasn't done. While I sat in my car, I sent every single photo to Jennifer Webb through an encrypted messaging app. I included the hotel receipts, the GPS coordinates, and the credit card statements. If my marriage was ending, Marcus's should too. Jennifer's response came within minutes. "Thank you, I've suspected for months. Can we meet?" We met that evening at a coffee shop downtown. Jennifer looked like she'd been crying for hours, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. "I found charges on his credit card for jewelry I never received," she said. "Expensive dinners at restaurants we never went to. I thought he was having a midlife crisis, buying things for himself. I never imagined—" "How long do you think it's been going on?" I asked. "At least 6 months, maybe longer. He's been working late constantly, claiming the pharmaceutical trials were demanding more oversight. I should have known. We spent 2 hours comparing notes, building a timeline of lies and deceptions. Jennifer was a paralegal. She knew how to gather evidence. Together, we were going to make sure our cheating spouses paid for every lie they'd told. "What's your plan?" Jennifer asked as we prepared to leave. "I'm going to hit them where it hurts most," I said. "Their reputations, their careers, and their bank accounts. By the time I'm done, they'll wish they'd just asked for a divorce." Jennifer smiled for the first time that evening. "Count me in." Rachel came home Sunday night, glowing with what she claimed was spa relaxation. She hugged me, told me about the amazing treatments she'd received, and showed me a few photos she'd carefully staged of herself alone by a pool. "The girls and I had such a wonderful time," she said, unpacking clothes that didn't smell like spa treatments. "We should do this more often." "Absolutely," I agreed, kissing her forehead. "You deserve to relax." What she deserved was a masterclass in consequences, and I was about to give her one. Over the next week, I worked methodically. During the day, I handled my regular caseload of cheating spouses and hidden assets. At night, I built a case against my own wife that would have impressed a federal prosecutor. I started with the financial records. As a trial coordinator, Rachel had access to pharmaceutical company funds for patient recruitment and retention. I pulled 5 years of banking records and found a pattern that made my blood boil. Small transfers, always under the reporting threshold, moving from trial accounts into a shell LLC that Marcus had set up. They weren't just having an affair, they were stealing money to fund it. The expensive hotel rooms, the jewelry Jennifer had mentioned, the romantic dinners, all of it paid for with clinical trial funds meant for cancer patients. "This is bigger than adultery," I told Jennifer during one of our evening strategy sessions. "This is wire fraud, embezzlement, and probably a dozen FDA violations." Jennifer had been busy too. As Marcus's wife, she had access to his home office, his computer, and his files. She'd found emails between Marcus and Rachel dating back 8 months, including explicit discussions about moving trial funds and detailed plans for their future together. "They're planning to leave us," Jennifer said, sliding a printed email across the table. "Marcus already contacted a divorce attorney. They want to clean us out and start fresh." The email was dated 3 weeks ago. Marcus had written to Rachel about finalizing the asset transfer and making sure the paper trail leads nowhere. They weren't just cheating, they were planning to financially destroy us in the process. That's when I decided to escalate. I filed for divorce on a Thursday morning, but not the way Rachel expected. Instead of a simple dissolution, I filed a complex petition that included forensic accounting demands, asset preservation orders, and a request for emergency spousal support. I attached a preliminary financial analysis showing irregularities in pharmaceutical trial funding that required immediate investigation. The papers were served to Rachel at her office, in front of her colleagues, by a process server who made sure everyone knew exactly what was happening. I wanted her humiliated, off balance, and panicked. But the real surprise was waiting at home. I'd spent 2 days setting up a projector system in our living room, connected to my laptop and triggered by motion sensors. When Rachel walked through the front door that evening, the walls lit up with a slideshow of her greatest hits. Photos from the lakeside resort, copies of the fraudulent financial transfers, and screenshots of her explicit emails with Marcus. She stood frozen in our entryway, watching her lies projected in high definition across the room where we'd celebrated 15 Christmases. "Hello, Rachel," I said from the kitchen doorway. "How was work today?" She tried to speak, but nothing came out. The photos kept cycling. Rachel and Marcus kissing by the lake, bank statements showing stolen trial funds, email timestamps proving months of deception. "David, I can explain—" "No need," I interrupted. "I'm a forensic accountant, remember? Numbers don't lie even when wives do." That's when she got angry. The tears stopped and I saw the real Rachel, cold, calculating, and furious at being caught. "You had no right to spy on me," she snapped. "Those bank records are confidential. You could lose your license for accessing them." "I accessed our joint accounts and traced transactions that originated from them," I replied calmly. "Everything I found was completely legal, unlike what you and Marcus have been doing with pharmaceutical trial funds." Her face went white. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know about the Shell LLC. I know about the patient recruitment funds that somehow paid for your romantic getaways. I know about the controlled substances that went missing from Marcus's inventory right around the time you two needed extra cash." I was bluffing about the controlled substances, but her reaction told me I'd hit close to home. Rachel's job included managing drug inventories for clinical trials. If she and Marcus were skimming money, they might have been stealing drugs too. "The FDA is very interested in pharmaceutical trial irregularities," I continued, "especially when they involve missing funds and controlled substances. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your creative accounting methods." Rachel finally found her voice. "You bastard! You're trying to destroy my career over a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed. "Rachel, you've been systematically stealing from cancer patients to fund your affair. You've lied to me for months, stolen from our joint accounts, and planned to divorce me while hiding assets. This isn't a mistake. It's a criminal enterprise." She looked around the room at the evidence still playing on our walls. "What do you want?" "Justice," I said simply, "and I'm going to get it." The next morning brought the first casualty of my war against Rachel and Marcus. Jennifer called me at 7 a.m., her voice shaking with excitement. "Marcus came home last night in a panic," she said. "He knows about the divorce filing, and he's terrified about the financial investigation. He tried to convince me that you're making everything up." "What did you tell him?" "I told him I believed him completely, and that I was shocked by your accusations against Rachel. Then I offered to help him gather evidence to prove his innocence." Jennifer was brilliant. By playing the supportive wife, she'd gained access to Marcus's damage control efforts. She was now our inside source for their counter-strategy. "He's planning to claim that Rachel acted alone," Jennifer continued. "He wants to paint himself as an innocent supervisor who was seduced by a criminal employee. He's already contacted the pharmaceutical company's legal department." That was exactly what I'd expected. Marcus was going to throw Rachel under the bus to save himself. But I had other plans. I spent the morning preparing my next move. As a forensic accountant, I had contacts throughout the financial and legal community. I made 3 phone calls that would change everything. First, I called my friend Sarah Chen at the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations. Sarah and I had worked together on several pharmaceutical fraud cases over the years. She owed me a favor from a case where my analysis had helped her secure a major conviction. "I've got a potential pharmaceutical trial fraud case," I told her. "Missing funds, possible controlled substance diversions, and falsified patient recruitment records." "How solid is your evidence?" Sarah asked. "Solid enough for a federal warrant. I can have a complete financial analysis on your desk by tomorrow morning." "Send it over. If it's what you say it is, we'll fast-track the investigation." My second call was to the state medical board. As a licensed medical professional, Marcus was subject to immediate suspension if credible evidence of criminal activity surfaced. I'd worked with the board's investigative unit on several cases involving healthcare fraud. "Dr. Marcus Webb at Midwest Clinical Research," I told the investigator. "Potential embezzlement of pharmaceutical trial funds and controlled substance violations. I have documentation. We'll open an investigation immediately. If the evidence supports criminal charges, his license will be suspended pending resolution." My third call was to the pharmaceutical company funding the clinical trials where Rachel and Marcus worked. Corporate America hates nothing more than bad publicity involving patient safety and financial irregularities. I spoke with their compliance officer and provided a preliminary analysis showing fund diversions and inventory discrepancies. We take these allegations extremely seriously, the compliance officer assured me. We'll be conducting our own investigation immediately. By noon, I had 3 separate investigations launched against Rachel and Marcus, but I wasn't done yet. I drove to Emma's school to pick up our daughters for lunch. Emma was 16 and smart enough to understand that her parents' marriage was in trouble. Lily, our 14-year-old, was more naive but equally perceptive. "Dad, why are you picking us up?" Emma asked as they got in the car. "Mom said she was coming." "Your mom is dealing with some work issues today," I said carefully. "I thought we could have lunch and talk." We went to their favorite restaurant, and I explained the situation as gently as possible. I didn't want to destroy their relationship with their mother, but I needed them to understand why their lives were about to change dramatically. "Mom and I are getting divorced," I said after we'd ordered. "It's not because of anything you did, and it doesn't mean we love you any less." Emma, always the mature one, asked the hard question, "Is Mom cheating on you?" I looked at my daughters, these 2 amazing young women who deserved honesty from at least one of their parents. "Yes, she is, with her boss at work. They've been lying to both his wife and me for months." Lily started crying. Emma got angry. "How could she do that to you? To us?" "People make choices," I said. "Sometimes those choices hurt the people they love. But I promise you, no matter what happens between your mom and me, you'll always be my priority." Emma wiped her eyes and looked at me with a determination that reminded me of myself. "What are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to make sure the truth comes out," I said, "and I'm going to make sure you and Lily are protected." That afternoon, I received a call that changed everything. It was from Tom Bradley, my former law school roommate, who now worked as a federal prosecutor. "David, I just got a call from the FDA about a case involving your wife," Tom said. "I wanted to give you a heads up. This is bigger than adultery. If the evidence supports the allegations, we're looking at federal wire fraud charges." "How serious are we talking?" 10 to 20 years serious. The pharmaceutical companies are cooperating fully, and the medical board is already moving to suspend Dr. Webb's license. Your wife is going to need a very good criminal defense attorney. I hung up the phone and sat in my office, processing what Tom had told me. I'd started this war to expose Rachel's affair and protect my assets. Now I was looking at sending my wife to federal prison. For about 30 seconds, I felt guilty. Then I remembered the photos of Rachel and Marcus by the lake, the stolen money meant for cancer patients, and the months of lies she'd told while planning to destroy me financially. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with the consequences. Rachel came home that evening like a woman walking to her execution. The pharmaceutical company had suspended her pending investigation. The medical board had contacted Marcus about his license. The FDA had scheduled interviews with both of them for the following week. Her affair partner's world was crumbling, and she knew I was the one holding the sledgehammer. "We need to talk," she said, finding me in my office. "I'm listening." She sat down across from my desk, looking older than I'd ever seen her. "How far are you planning to take this?" "As far as it needs to go." "David, I made a mistake. I know that. But destroying my career, ruining Marcus's life, this is insane. You're talking about federal charges over what amounts to a few $1,000s. A few $1,000s? I pulled up my financial analysis on the computer screen. "Rachel, you and Marcus have diverted over $40,000 from pharmaceutical trial funds. You've falsified patient recruitment records, manipulated inventory reports, and committed wire fraud across state lines. This isn't a mistake, it's a crime spree." She stared at the numbers on my screen, her face getting paler by the second. "I never meant for it to go this far." "What did you mean for it to do? You plan to divorce me, hide assets, and start fresh with Marcus using stolen money. Did you think I was too stupid to figure it out?" "I thought—" She stopped, realizing there was no good way to finish that sentence. You thought you were smarter than a forensic accountant who specializes in financial fraud. You thought I'd just roll over and let you destroy our family for a middle-aged doctor with a god complex. Rachel started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and fear. She was finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done and what was coming next. "What do you want?" she asked. "What will it take to make this stop?" "It's too late to stop it," I said. "The FDA has the evidence. The medical board has the evidence. The pharmaceutical company has the evidence. Even if I wanted to call off the dogs, they're not my dogs anymore." "There has to be something." "There is something," I interrupted. "You can tell our daughters the truth. You can admit what you did, apologize for destroying their family, and face the consequences like an adult." She looked at me with pure hatred. "You're enjoying this." "I'm not enjoying it, Rachel. I'm just not going to let you get away with it." That's when she played her last card. "If you push this, I'll tell everyone that you've been stalking me. I'll say you fabricated evidence, that you're obsessed and dangerous. I'll get a restraining order and claim you threatened me." I smiled for the first time in our conversation. "Go ahead, try it." "What?" "Call the police right now. Tell them I'm stalking you. Let's see how that works out." She pulled out her phone, then hesitated. "You're calling my bluff." "I'm not bluffing at all. Please, call the police. I'd love to explain to them how I stalked you by accessing our joint bank accounts and following GPS coordinates from our family vehicle. I'd love to show them the time-stamped photos of you committing adultery with a man who's now under federal investigation for embezzlement." Rachel put her phone down. She finally understood that I'd thought of everything, planned for every contingency. There was no escape route left. "The girls will hate you for this," she said desperately. "The girls already know the truth. I told them today. Emma asked me how I could let you get away with cheating on me. Lily wanted to know why you would hurt our family like this." That broke her. Rachel collapsed into sobs, finally understanding that she'd lost everything: her marriage, her children's respect, her career, and possibly her freedom. "I never meant to hurt them," she whispered. "But you did hurt them. You hurt all of us, and now you're going to face the consequences." I stood up from my desk. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide whether you want to cooperate with the federal investigation or fight it. Either way, our marriage is over, and your criminal exposure is the same. The only question is whether you want to make it worse by lying to federal agents." Rachel looked up at me through her tears. "I used to love you." "No, you didn't," I said. "You loved the idea of me, the stable husband, the reliable provider, the man who would never question your lies. You never loved me enough to be honest with me." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Jennifer Webb filed for divorce this morning. Marcus is going to be served tomorrow, right around the time the FBI raids his office. You might want to call him and compare notes on how it feels to have your life destroyed by someone you underestimated." The next morning brought the kind of chaos that makes local news stations salivate. I watched from my office as FBI agents and FDA investigators executed search warrants at Midwest Clinical Research. The pharmaceutical company had provided complete cooperation, including financial records, inventory reports, and internal communications. Marcus Webb was arrested at 10:47 a.m. on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and controlled substance violations. The local news cameras caught him being led away in handcuffs, his medical career effectively over. Rachel was arrested at 11:15 a.m. at our house. I wasn't there. I'd taken the girls to school and gone to work as if it were any other day. But our neighbor Mrs. Patterson called me with a detailed play-by-play of federal agents searching our home and leading my wife away in handcuffs. "They took boxes of papers and her computer," Mrs. Patterson reported breathlessly. "Channel 7 was here filming everything. I recorded it on my phone if you want to see it." "That won't be necessary," I said, though part of me was curious. By noon, the story was all over local media. Pharmaceutical trial coordinators arrested in embezzlement scheme. The reports detailed how two medical professionals had allegedly stolen funds meant for cancer patient care to finance an extramarital affair. My phone started ringing immediately. Reporters, colleagues, friends who'd heard the news. I ignored most of the calls, but I did answer when Tom Bradley called from the prosecutor's office. "Your evidence package was exceptional," Tom said. "The financial analysis alone would have been enough for conviction, but combined with the communications Jennifer Webb provided, this is going to be a slam-dunk case." "What are they looking at for sentencing?" "Rachel will probably get 5 to 7 years if she pleads guilty. Marcus is looking at 10 to 15. He was the senior conspirator, and he had professional responsibilities that make his conduct more egregious." "And their professional licenses?" "Gone. The medical board suspended Marcus immediately, and the state licensing board will revoke Rachel's certifications. They'll never work in healthcare again." I hung up and sat in my office, processing the magnitude of what had happened. 6 months ago, I'd been a happily married forensic accountant with 2 teenage daughters and a suburban mortgage. Now I was a single father whose wife was facing federal prison time. The strangest part was how little satisfaction I felt. I'd wanted justice, and I'd gotten it. I'd wanted Rachel to face consequences for her choices, and she was facing them. But mostly, I just felt tired. My daughters took the news better than I'd expected. Emma was angry, but not surprised. Lily was sad, but seemed relieved that the uncertainty was over. "Are we going to be okay?" Lily asked that evening as we ate dinner without their mother for the first time. "We're going to be fine," I assured her. "Better than fine. We're going to be honest with each other, and we're going to take care of each other." Emma looked at me seriously. "Dad, are you glad Mom got arrested?" It was a fair question that deserved an honest answer. "I'm not glad your mom is in trouble. I'm sad that she made choices that led to this, but I'm glad the truth came out. And I'm glad we don't have to live with lies anymore." The divorce proceedings moved quickly after Rachel's arrest. Her criminal defense attorney advised her to cooperate fully with the federal investigation and accept whatever divorce terms I offered. She had no leverage left and no assets to fight over. Everything she and Marcus had stolen was subject to federal restitution orders. I got the house, the cars, and primary custody of the girls. Rachel got supervised visitation rights and a federal prison sentence. The most satisfying moment came 3 months later during Rachel's sentencing hearing. I sat in the gallery with Jennifer Webb, watching our former spouses face the consequences of their choices. Marcus got 12 years in federal prison and a restitution order for $63,000. His medical license was permanently revoked, and he was banned from working in any healthcare-related field. Rachel got 6 years and a restitution order for $41,000. Her professional certifications were revoked, and she was prohibited from handling pharmaceutical products or patient data. Before sentencing, both defendants were allowed to make statements to the court. Marcus blamed Rachel for seducing him and claimed he'd been manipulated into criminal conduct. Rachel blamed me for vindictively pursuing charges and destroying their lives over a personal matter. Neither of them took responsibility for stealing money from cancer patients. Neither of them apologized to their families for the lies and betrayal. Even facing federal prison, they were more concerned with avoiding blame than accepting consequences. Judge Morrison wasn't impressed. The defendants seemed to believe they were the victims of circumstances beyond their control, she said. But the evidence shows a deliberate, calculated scheme to defraud pharmaceutical companies and steal funds meant for patient care. The sentences I'm imposing reflect the seriousness of these crimes and the breach of professional trust they represent. After the hearing, Jennifer and I walked out of the courthouse together. Our former spouses were led away in shackles to begin their federal prison sentences. "Do you feel better?" Jennifer asked. "I feel like justice was served," I said. "That's enough." 6 months after Rachel's sentencing, life had settled into a new normal. Emma was thriving in her junior year of high school, and Lily had joined the debate team. We developed routines that worked without Rachel's presence, and honestly, we were happier without the constant tension of living with someone who was lying to us. I'd been contacted by the FBI about consulting on other pharmaceutical fraud cases. My analysis of Rachel and Marcus's scheme had impressed federal investigators, and they wanted my expertise on similar cases. It was interesting work that paid well and gave me a sense of purpose beyond just catching cheating spouses. The biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the new director of clinical research at the pharmaceutical company where Rachel had worked, called me about a permanent consulting position. "We need someone who understands both the financial and clinical sides of pharmaceutical trials," she explained. "Your background in forensic accounting, combined with your experience exposing the Webb-Carter fraud, makes you uniquely qualified to help us prevent future incidents." The job would involve developing fraud detection protocols, training clinical staff on financial compliance, and conducting regular audits of trial sites. It was exactly the kind of work I'd always wanted to do, using my skills to protect patients and ensure research integrity. "There's one thing you should know," Dr. Martinez added. "This position would require you to testify in congressional hearings about pharmaceutical trial security. Your case has attracted attention from lawmakers who want to strengthen oversight of clinical research funding." The idea of testifying before Congress was intimidating, but also exciting. Rachel and Marcus's crimes had exposed weaknesses in the system that protected clinical trial funding. If my experience could help prevent other patients from being victimized, it was worth the public exposure. I accepted the position and started work the following month. My first assignment was developing a comprehensive audit protocol for clinical trial sites. I created systems that would flag the exact type of financial irregularities that Rachel and Marcus had used to fund their affair. The congressional hearing took place on a Tuesday in November. I sat at a witness table in a packed hearing room, facing a panel of senators and representatives who wanted to understand how two medical professionals had stolen patient care funds without detection. "Mr. Carter," Senator Williams began, "you discovered this fraud by analyzing your own family's financial records. What does that tell us about the oversight systems that should have caught this criminal activity?" "Senator, it tells us that the current systems rely too heavily on trust and too little on verification," I replied. "Clinical trial coordinators have access to significant funds with minimal oversight. My wife and her supervisor were able to divert over $100,000 over 18 months without triggering any automatic reviews." "What changes would you recommend?" 3 key reforms. Mandatory segregation of duties, so no single person can authorize and execute fund transfers. Real-time financial monitoring systems that flag unusual transactions, and regular independent audits of all clinical trial sites. The hearing lasted 4 hours. I answered questions about fraud detection, financial oversight, and the personal impact of discovering criminal activity within my own family. Several senators expressed shock at how easily Rachel and Marcus had manipulated the system. "The victims here weren't just you and Dr. Webb's wife," Senator Chen observed. "The real victims were cancer patients whose care was compromised by stolen funds." "That's exactly right, Senator. This wasn't a victimless crime. Every dollar they stole was a dollar that should have been used to recruit patients, provide care, or advance medical research." After the hearing, I was approached by representatives from 3 major pharmaceutical companies who wanted to hire me as a consultant. The publicity from the congressional testimony had established me as a leading expert in clinical trial fraud prevention. Over the next year, I built a consulting practice that specialized in pharmaceutical compliance and fraud detection. I worked with companies across the country, developing systems that would prevent the kind of scheme Rachel and Marcus had operated. The work was fulfilling in a way that divorce mediation had never been. Instead of just documenting the aftermath of betrayal, I was helping prevent future crimes. Instead of dividing assets between angry spouses, I was protecting funds meant to help sick patients. Emma graduated high school with honors and received a full scholarship to study pre-law at Northwestern University. She told me she wanted to become a prosecutor specializing in white-collar crime. You showed me that people who think they're too smart to get caught usually aren't as smart as they think, she said. I want to catch more people like Mom and Marcus. Lily decided she wanted to become a forensic accountant like me. You turned Mom's lies into evidence that sent her to prison, she said. I want to learn how to do that. I was proud of both my daughters, not just for their academic achievements, but for their moral clarity. They understood that their mother had made choices that hurt people, and they wanted to spend their lives preventing similar harm. Rachel was scheduled for release in 4 years with good behavior. She'd written several letters asking for forgiveness and requesting contact with the girls. Emma and Lily had both declined to respond. They weren't interested in reconciling with someone who'd never taken genuine responsibility for her actions. Marcus had tried to appeal his sentence, claiming his trial attorney was incompetent. The appeal was denied. He would serve at least 10 years in federal prison, and his wife, Jennifer, had remarried a man who actually respected their marriage vows. The Pine Lake Resort, where Rachel and Marcus had conducted their affair, was sold to new owners who converted it into a conference center for medical ethics seminars. I found that ironically appropriate. 5 years after Rachel's arrest, I was invited to speak at the annual conference of the American Society of Clinical Research Professionals. The topic was Financial Integrity in Clinical Trials, Lessons from the Webb Carter Case. I stood before an audience of 500 clinical research professionals and told them the story of how my wife's affair had exposed a criminal conspiracy that defrauded cancer patients of over $100,000. The systems we've implemented since the Webb Carter case have prevented an estimated $2.3 million in clinical trial fraud, I reported. Real-time monitoring, segregated financial controls, and regular independent audits have made it nearly impossible for individuals to divert patient care funds for personal use. After my presentation, a young clinical research coordinator approached me with tears in her eyes. My father died in a clinical trial for experimental cancer treatment, she said. The idea that someone would steal money meant for patients like him, it makes me sick. Thank you for making sure it can't happen again. That conversation reminded me why I'd chosen to rebuild my life around preventing pharmaceutical fraud. Rachel's betrayal had destroyed our marriage, but it had also revealed my true calling. I was using my skills to protect vulnerable patients and ensure the integrity of medical research. Emma was now in her 3rd year of law school, clerking for a federal judge who specialized in white-collar crime cases. She'd already been accepted for a position with the Department of Justice after graduation. Lily was finishing her accounting degree and had been accepted into a graduate program in forensic accounting. She'd written her senior thesis on family-based financial fraud, detection, and prevention strategies. Both of my daughters had turned their mother's crimes into motivation for careers dedicated to justice and truth. I couldn't have been more proud of the women they'd become. Rachel was released from federal prison last month after serving her full sentence. She'd been denied parole twice for refusing to participate in programs that required acknowledging the harm she'd caused to patients and families. She sent a letter asking to see Emma and Lily. Both daughters declined. They'd built lives based on honesty and integrity, and they weren't interested in revisiting a relationship built on lies and betrayal. Marcus was still in federal prison and would remain there for at least 5 more years. Jennifer had testified at his parole hearing, opposing his early release and detailing the ongoing impact of his crimes on their children and the patients whose care had been compromised. As for me, I'd found something I never expected after my marriage ended: peace. Not the peace of revenge satisfied, but the peace of justice served and purpose fulfilled. I'd started this journey as an angry husband who'd discovered his wife's affair. I'd ended it as a man who'd helped protect thousands of patients from financial fraud and built a career around preventing the crimes that had destroyed my family. Rachel had thought she was smarter than a forensic accountant. She'd been wrong about that, and wrong about everything else that mattered. Her lies had been exposed, her crimes had been punished, and her victims had been protected from future harm. The truth had won, as it always does when someone is patient enough to document it and brave enough to pursue it. Standing in my office today, looking at the congressional commendation for my work in pharmaceutical fraud prevention, I realized that Rachel's betrayal had been the best thing that ever happened to my career and my relationship with my daughters. She'd tried to destroy my life with lies and theft. Instead, she'd given me a purpose worth living for and daughters who understood the value of truth. Justice had been served, completely